A sustainable bioeconomy based on renewable resources helps to reach the Sustainable Development Goals and to strengthen global food security, saves resources, and creates new income opportunities.
From food to energy, cosmetics, chemicals, and even tourism, we can now create high-value byproducts and services. But bioeconomy also strengthens agriculture and food systems. Bioeconomy lets us boost productivity and sustainability in biomass production.
I have helped farmers in my community reduce post-harvest losses by 85%. This is not just about technology, it's about empowering communities to fight food insecurity while protecting our planet.
Bioeconomy is recognized as a driving force for transformation economic growth in global agendas like G20, Global Bioeconomy Summit, and now GFFA.
There are multiple stakeholders and stepping stones to get to the G20, and we are looking forward to engaging with partners at the GFFA in January this coming year.
I'm delighted to see you all at the GFFA to discuss how a global sustainable bioeconomy contributes to strengthening global food security and implementing the right to food.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, welcome to the GFFA Kickoff Event 2025. Please welcome our host and master of ceremony, Monica Jones.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests. Welcome to the Global Forum for Food and Agriculture 2025 here in Berlin, hosted by the German Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food, of course, and in cooperation with the Messe Berlin. At this point, I would also like to welcome everyone who is watching us online. So it's very good to have you all with us. My name is Monica Jones, as you heard. I'm an independent broadcast journalist and also TV news anchor, and it is my great pleasure to guide you through the program of this opening event. I would like to start with actually engaging you straight away. So I need your help. Can I please have a show of hands? Who of you is attending the Global Forum for Food and Agriculture for the very first time? Okay, I think that's enough for me to tell you a little bit about this event. The Global Forum for Food and Agriculture, in short GFFA, was launched in 2009, and it has since then taken place every year, always at the start of the International Green Week. Now, the aim of the GFFA is to bring together experts in food and agriculture, representing the fields of politics, of business, of academia, civil society, to bring them all together in order to exchange ideas on how to enable and balance global food securities, and that with environmental issues, in particular also how to fight climate change and how to fight the ongoing loss of biodiversity. And you can imagine that this is a tall order to cover all these aspects. There are so many perspectives, so many voices that need to be heard, and it's very easy to get overwhelmed and perhaps miss the wood for the tree. This is why the GFFA every year focuses on a specific aspect, and we've seen it in the film just now that this year the motto of this GFFA 2025 is farming a sustainable bioeconomy. Now that in itself could also lead to all sorts of discussions and perspectives, which is why it's been narrowed down even further into 4 key aspects, key topics. These are sustainably producing biomass, solving conflicts of interest, sustainably using biomass, ensuring global food security, strengthening innovation, promoting communication, very important here over the next few days, and creating a fair framework, harnessing change. Now, these 4 core topics will also help us during the panel discussion, which will basically kick off this opening event very, very shortly. Then, of course, based on these 4 core topics, some 2,000 policymakers, scientists, business leaders, members of civil society, they will all gather here in Berlin over the next few days in order to exchange their ideas and also to learn from each other and hopefully yield some tangible results. So, before we start with the very first discussion, let's kick off this opening event officially, and that means it's my great pleasure to call to the stage the Parliamentary State Secretary at the Federal Ministry of Food and Agriculture. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Claudia Müller.
Ministers, State Secretaries, Excellencies, Mrs. Jones, panelists, participants of the Youth Forum, guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2025 Global Forum on Food and Agriculture. Now, before I start the official speech, let me say a few words in advance about the outbreak of the foot and mouth disease on a farm in Brandenburg. I think that's a topic you all are interested in. Now, our goal is to quickly push back the virus in order to minimize the damage to the agriculture, food industry, and animals. You all know that prompt and decisive action is important here. And that is why the responsible authorities reacted immediately to prevent the spread of the disease. Measures such as restricted zones, transport bans, and preventive culling are implemented. And very intensive testing is underway. And so far, we do not see a big spread yet. But I can assure you, we continue testing, we follow any sign that might lead to other cases. We are very, very strict on that, and we will be very transparent. We try to be cautiously optimistic on it, and I can assure you that we do take the situation very, very seriously, and we will do anything in our power to ensure that it remains isolated. And for that reason, I strongly advocate in keeping markets open in accordance to the principles of regionalization. That ahead, because this is something that, of course, at the moment is on our mind all the time, even here. But, ladies and gentlemen, let's come to the topic here. Now, did you know that half of the yearly GDP worldwide depends on nature? In 2023, economic activities worth of $58 trillion took place in sectors that are moderately or highly dependent on our planet's intact ecosystems. This means that more than half of the value we create worldwide depends, for instance, on our planet's being pollinated by a wide range of insects, on our soils being healthy to allow efficient agricultural production. Our world economy owes much to nature. One might assume that an economy that is reliant on nature would duly protect the health of our planet. However, the devastating truth is, we don't. Quite the contrary. Public subsidies for economic activities that are have a damaging effect on biodiversity is estimated to amount to approximately $1.7 trillion per year. At the same time, significantly less than 1% of the global GDP is invested in measures to enhance the status of biodiversity. If we carry on like that, we will be literally sawing off the branch we are sitting on. So we need to reshape our economies to take into account the linkage between planetary health and our own well-being. Our economies must undergo profound change to better respect our planet's boundaries and its limited natural resources. And our global agriculture and food systems are the central pillar of this change. They need to become more climate smart, more sustainable, and more resource efficient from the ecological and socio-economic point of view. This means that we must face a number of different tasks at the same time. Our first task is to slow down the climate crisis, protect biodiversity, and preserve our natural resources. We need to promote the use of renewable raw materials instead of finite fossil resources. And you see, we are not just talking energy here, we really have to see the big picture. We need to produce biomass more sustainably and use it more effectively. And to achieve this, we need to place greater focus on innovative agricultural technologies and move away from fossil-based fertilizers to bio-inputs. Our second task is to fight global hunger and ensure food security for a growing world population. Realizing the right to adequate food across the globe has always been one of the paramount objectives of the GFFA. Sufficient, nutritious, and healthy food must be made available, affordable, and accessible to all people across the globe. Global food security must be ensured for the years and decades to come. And one element of this is that we must urgently reduce food waste and post-harvest losses. And our third task is to strengthen sustainable, equitable, and fair value creation, especially in rural areas. To achieve this, we especially need to support vulnerable groups such as women, smallholder farmers, indigenous populations, and young people. We need to strengthen access to land and water and make capacity building, decision-making processes, and governance more inclusive. Now, how can we master these huge challenges at the same time? Well, we must bring together ecology and economy and strike a balance between the two, with, at the same time, upholding social equity. One highly promising path to achieve this is to place a greater focus on bioeconomy approaches and circular systems worldwide. A sustainable global bioeconomy offers solutions to many of the challenges I have just mentioned. And the good news is we do not need to start from scratch. For example, the Committee on World Food Security, the CFS, has developed various guidelines on key issues for shaping sustainable global agriculture and food systems. And those are a sound basis to build upon. Ladies and gentlemen, for many years now, the German Federal Ministry of Food and Agriculture has been working closely with different countries and international organizations to advance joint bioeconomy activities. And we welcome that in the last few years, a considerable and large number of multilateral formats have been created to explore cooperative bioeconomy approaches. One very prominent example is the G20 Bioeconomy Initiative that was launched by the Brazilian presidency last year. And the G20's 10 high-level principles on bioeconomy are a very important milestone on our path towards a global bioeconomy. And we are very glad that South Africa, as the new G20 presidency, will continue along this road. And it is also good news that the EU Commission has announced a review of its 2018 bioeconomy strategy for this year. Germany wants to build upon this momentum and advance the exchange on bioeconomy issues even further, beyond the EU and even beyond G20. It was, therefore, my particular pleasure to open the 4th Global Bioeconomy Summit in Nairobi, Kenya, in October last year. It was about time to take this important summit to the next level, and taking it out of Germany, where the first 3 had been taken place, and then especially onto the very fast-changing continent of Africa. And we want to continue on this path, and to further encourage worldwide knowledge sharing and cooperation in bioeconomy policies. And that is why we have dedicated this GFA to the topic Farming a Sustainable Bioeconomy. After all, sustainable agriculture, forest management, aquaculture and fisheries are the cornerstones of a sustainable global bioeconomy. We, as agricultural practitioners, experts, policymakers, have the responsibility and we have the power to lay the necessary foundations. Foundations so that in the future, many other fields and sectors in our countries will be able to benefit from this sustainable bioeconomy for the sake of the entire planet. Now, we know that there is no one-size-fits-all solution. Our countries are subject to different conditions and circumstances, geographical, social, and political. Therefore, it is only logical that we choose different paths, policies, and approaches to address the current challenges. Nevertheless, we are all united by common objectives. Our different national approaches are not contradictory. They are complementary to each other. And this is why we should bring all these ideas and perspectives together and coordinate the efforts. And this is why we should bring our ideas, and the GFFA is the ideal place for it. Enabling mutual exchange and learning have always been at the heart of the GFFA. And this is what agricultural diplomacy is all about, cooperating as partners, finding the best solutions together. Now, very recently, there have been more and more calls for a dedicated global alliance in the field of bioeconomy. And we in Germany also think that a global bioeconomy partnership, bringing together all stakeholders, could help us consolidate international knowledge and exchange this knowledge on bioeconomy. It could be a catalyst for an inclusive development of a balanced and truly integrated global bioeconomy framework. We have therefore set up a project together with FAO to explore such a partnership, how it could look like and how it could be set up. And we are very much looking forward to the results of this undertaking because that will be the basis for further discussions. Esteemed guests, before I finish, I would like to extend my cordial thanks to the panelists of today's opening panel, Professor Lang, Dr. Shetty, Dr. Ekuru, and Mr. Zaidi, who will now set the scene and get the ball rolling. I wish us all an enlightening and inspiring 2025 GFFA, full of valuable encounters and fruitful exchanges. Let's use the GFFA to jointly unlock the potential of a sustainable global bioeconomy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so very much, State Secretary Müller. And I think I speak on behalf of everyone here. Get well soon. You told me a little bit about the mishap on a staircase, but it's all going to be fine again, so get well soon. And yes, indeed, we will get the ball rolling very, very shortly, but I've just noticed during the speech, I heard a melody which was really nice, and I thought to myself, somebody here has his or her mobile phone still on speakers, or certainly not put on mute. So now you have the chance to set your mobile phones on mute. You can leave them on, obviously, but just on mute so we all can pay attention to the esteemed panel that I'm going to call onto the stage now to join me, namely Kavi Zahidi, Dr. Shobha Shetty, Professor Dr. Christina Lang, and Dr. Julius Ekuru. Yeah, welcome. Perfect. Please take a seat. And before I do a proper introduction, because I'm sure you all want to know who are these people, what do they do, where do they come from, I would also like to introduce you to two young farmers' representatives, because in the last few years it's now become some sort of a tradition. Here they are. We invite them also to intervene during the discussion, we have here with us Martin Murray. He is the chair of the New South Wales Farmers Young Farmer Council and member of NSW Farmers Executive Council from Australia. He told me earlier he is much, much more than that, but we just leave it at that for the time being. And we have here with us Rosalind Kasunda. She is the founder and CEO of Peculiar Honeybee Products and Services in Malawi. She's also youth director and therefore in the board of the Farmers Union in Malawi. So we look forward to your interventions later during the discussion. But first, who do we have here? We have here to my left Kavi Sahidi. He is Director, Office of Climate Change, Biodiversity and Environment at the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, so FAO. The State Secretary mentioned it earlier. And prior to joining FAO, Mr. Sahidi served as the Deputy Executive Secretary of the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific, as well as the United Nations Environment Programme in various positions. Very good to have you here with us. Now you can, every time I thank them, you can actually just say hello. It keeps the blood flowing, that's good, you know. Then, right at center stage, we have Dr. Shobha Shetty. She's Global Director, Agriculture and Food Global Practice at the World Bank. Prior to assuming her current position, Ms. Shetty served as Agriculture and Food Practice Manager in the Africa region, as well as South Asia. She also served as Practice Manager for Global Partnerships and Resource Mobilization in the Social, Urban, Rural Resilience and Global Practice. Now, she's got lots of work, lots of interests. What sprang off the page for me was that among those interests is digital agriculture, which certainly will be a topic in the discussion, women's empowerment and rural youth employment, which I'm sure is also something that our young farmers here would be very much interested in. So good to have you here with us, Dr. Shetty. Then we have Professor Dr. Christine Lang, who I actually know already for several years because together we had the opportunity to work on the Global Bioeconomy Summits in 2015 and 2018, both here in Germany. Now, she's head of the Bio-Based Future Foundation. She's co-chair of the International Advisory Council for Global Economy. She's been co-chair of the German Bioeconomy Council and, of course, the initiator of the Global Bioeconomy Summit series. Last year, Professor Lang established the Bio-Based Future Foundation in order to encourage and support researchers and young scientists in their work on bio-based processes. That fits very well also with her role as an adjunct professor of microbiology and molecular genetics. She teaches genetics in biotechnology at the Technical University in Berlin. Good to have you with us, Professor Lang. And last but not least, we welcome Julius Ikuro, who holds a PhD. He's head of BioInnovate Africa at the International Center of Insect Physiology and Ecology. And he's also co-chair of the International Advisory Council on Global Bioeconomy in Kenya. And as such, he was instrumental in the organization and implementation of the Global Bioeconomy Summit for the first time outside of Europe in Kenya, which was in autumn last year. As an interdisciplinary scholar and researcher, he also makes scientific contributions in the fields of chemistry, bioengineering, and he supports capacity development and regulatory science and research ethics. He also has many research interests, and those include interactive learning models that foster collaboration between, and this is very important for the GFFA because this is what's going to happen over the next few days, collaboration between academia, industry, and government for innovation, growth, and social development. So, Mr. Ikuro, so good to have you here.
Thank you.
So now we know who is on stage. So let me start with a quick opening round just to hear a word or two from all the panelists very early on. We're talking about farming a sustainable bioeconomy. We already heard about the Brazilian G20 bioeconomy initiative. We know that the Global Bioeconomy Summit for the first time ever took place outside of Europe last year. And now bioeconomy is also basically leading all the topics here at the GFFA. Makes me wonder, because bioeconomy as such isn't new, it's been around for a while. So, my question to all of you would be, and I start with you, Mr. Zahidi, is bioeconomy now mainstream? It seems to be trending, but how sustainable is that trend? How relevant is bioeconomy now really?
Thank you very much. And I think that's two separate questions, because certainly it's maturing as a concept. And the fact that we're here again to discuss bioeconomy in a conference dedicated to agriculture is an important milestone. If you remember, it was about 10 years ago at GFFA that this topic was again part of the conversation. And in those 10 years, we've come a long way. In a way, those 10 years triggered FAO to become a much bigger player, I guess, in the bioeconomy. We all have and have had different elements of bioeconomy, bioenergy, biotechnology work, but to bring it all under an umbrella and give it that cohesion, this 10-year journey has been important. We've seen it maturing at the global level. You mentioned the G20. That's a fundamental milestone, the high-level principles that were agreed last year. At FAO, similarly, we have the aspirational principles, beginning to look at the metrics that unite us, the framework of a bioeconomy, and you've seen that translated at the national level. Over 20 countries have their own national bioeconomy strategies. Sub-regions and regions similarly have the same, and you begin to see bioeconomy appear in conversations around climate change, in conversations around biodiversity, and be incorporated into national plans, the famous NDCs in climate and NBSAPs of biodiversity. And more than that, you're beginning to see more and more experimentation of what really is bioeconomy at the community level, converting it into experiments, innovation, products that can actually be sold on the market, helping to diversify farmer income. So in that sense, of course it's matured and it's come a long way. But I'm not sure it's center stage in the way it needs to be, because if you look around, we're still facing multiple crises. And it's these multiple crises that the bioeconomy was meant to address. The crisis, of course, of food security, but at the same time of biodiversity, of climate change. So we've come a long way, but there is a little way to go yet.
So there is the momentum, but we haven't reached our goal yet. That's what I hear from you, Dr. Shetty. What's your view? Where do you see the bioeconomy now in terms of relevance on a global stage?
Now, I fully agree with Kaveh. I think this is an idea that's not new, but it's certainly, I think, in the current day and age, with the world, the planet having crossed 9 of the 12 planetary boundaries, I think, and in 2023, I think this has become even more important, especially in the agri-food systems. So, and we are also talking here about, food loss and waste, which, of course, would be the third largest emitter if it were a country after the United States and China. So I think this is highly relevant, especially to the agri-food sector. And this venue for us, I think is really important that this is now center stage. And of course, I mean, we all know that agriculture has been the primary source of deforestation, biodiversity loss, and the largest consumption of fresh water. So all of this has historically raised agricultural productivity, but has also contributed to soil degradation, emissions and polluted waterways, and in many ways, it's threatening our future food security. So I think this focus that GFFA has this year on bioeconomy and regenerative agriculture, and it has so many terms. I mean, we are all talking about the same things, maybe in slightly different ways. But I think this is of crucial importance to us in our transforming agri-food systems globally. Because, I mean, I think if we continue along this linear pathway, this linear food system approach, the costs that are involved in terms of human health, environment, the social dimensions, I think it's enormous. I mean, I think we all know the numbers. It's almost $13 trillion in hidden externalities. So this is equivalent to $35 billion in PPP per day. But I think the other important aspect for us, and this is where, again, the importance of bioeconomy and regenerative agriculture shows up, is the fact that our food system is currently failing in its primary goal of providing stable access to nutritious food today, right? So, and in a rapidly heating world with, we have to increase productivity to feed an additional 2 billion people in the next 20 years or so. And this is going to be one of our defining challenges. And this is all threatened by climate change, the biodiversity tipping points, which has really exposed our food supplies to global conflict. So more than ever, I think the bioeconomy and regenerative agriculture continues to be of really critical importance. And I'm very glad to the GFFA organizers for making this the theme again after 10 years. Thank you.
Indeed. Thank you, Dr. Shetty. I mean, both you and Mr. Zahidi you were both focusing primarily, which is not surprising, it's the Global Forum for Food and Agriculture, but linking the bioeconomy to food and agriculture. Professor Lang, bioeconomy, the term, is trending, definitely. It may have the kind of momentum that we need now after so many years, but are we actually talking all about the same thing here?
That's a good question. And the thing is that bioeconomy is really a very broad concept. And actually, we're expecting a lot of this concept, and not just in agri-food systems, but a lot in chemistry, in health, in urban bioeconomy. You can name a lot of areas that bioeconomy can help. It doesn't matter if we talk about the same definition. There is some definition we put up, and it's about sustainable production and use of biomass. There's so much more now. To answer a bit on the question, where are we, I would just like to focus a bit on where we come from. I mean, bioeconomy has not been around for such a long time. I think it's about 20 years from now. It's not that long in the development of economies. And in the beginning, when we started, it was called the knowledge-based bioeconomy concept brought up in 2007. And at that time, it was the first time, just to tell you, that I was confronted by economy and said, well, I'm not a bioeconomist, I'm a microbiologist, I'm a biotechnologist, but not bioeconomist. And very soon learned that all that we're doing in this area and space has an economic consequence, a social consequence, and everything is in bioeconomy. Even today, I hear some of you say, well, I'm not a bioeconomist. Just think twice. I think you are. Because everybody of us is. So that would be my first thing. And then I would like to answer the question, where are we now? Well, looking back, it was a research topic, really. In the beginning, we did research. We did innovation, startups coming up, having new concepts, having wonderful new products in bio-based solutions and processes. Then these startups had the application. And actually, where we now are is we're not yet on the markets. And we should just ask ourselves, what is it? Why is not this great concept and something we all live in? Because food, agriculture, health, climate, urban cities and urban bioeconomy is something that touches all of us. It's still not on the market. I think this is one of the major questions we should focus on. What is so difficult about it? Why is it not there? Is it subsidies to the old technologies, for example? Is it regulations and standards that are not fit for the new products? So I think that's what we have to look for. Innovation is there, but innovation is only truly there if we find products on the markets. So my point would be, that's the one, and the second is, let's all start to think about bioeconomy as a transformation of economy. And transformative, you mentioned it, this is the second thing we need to think about. The ultimate goal, and we're not yet there, is that everybody accepts that bioeconomy is the new economy. And that's where we want to go.
Nice. And you brought up so many points that we definitely will follow up during this discussion. Absolutely. Certainly also the reasons why applications, why innovations, why possibilities that already exist today, why they aren't everyday practice yet. That is definitely a very important, big question, and I hope we get some answers for that. But first, Julius Ikuro, You were, as I said, instrumental for bringing the Global Bioeconomy Summit to Kenya, to organize it there. I assume that wasn't your first contact with the bioeconomy, which, as we've learned now, certainly has reached a momentum, much more so, much bigger than in previous years. But we also heard that we're not there yet. So what's your assessment on that?
Yeah, thank you so much. But first of all, I would like to really thank, Professor Christine Lang and Professor Joachim von Braun and others who, started this Global Bioeconomy Summit series all the way back in 2015 here in Berlin. And I think that created a lot of momentum. And of course, Germany's leadership in bringing stakeholders around the world to define and shape global bioeconomy issues has been very, very instrumental in bringing us to where we are today. So for Africa, for instance, some of our leaders attended the GBS 2018 here in Berlin and got a lot of inspiration, conceptual clarity on what bioeconomy is, and then went back home and took bold decisions to develop bioeconomy according to our own unique natural advantages. So that's really critical. Now we see bioeconomy more and more in shaping our food security and also a sustainable agriculture. We are also looking at bioeconomy in terms of improving our health and well-being. We are looking at bioeconomy in terms of promoting sustainable energy and also sustainable industrialization. But all this now we see underpinned by innovation, scientific input into the processes, biological processes that we have. And we also see a lot of interest now in including indigenous knowledge and indigenous communities in defining what their bioeconomies are. And that is really critical. So for us, and what we see beginning to emerge is the understanding that bioeconomy is becoming not only a conceptual niche, but it's really becoming a sustainable growth pathway for the future. And we are seeing a lot of youth getting interested, because it's science-driven, it's innovation-driven. That's great for the youth. And then we also see a lot of interactions among different sectors. So we're not only talking about food and agriculture, but as Professor Lang said, we're also looking at medicine, we are looking at industry and all those sectors. And I think for the Global South, the key issue is how bioeconomy will deliver jobs for the youth and economic empowerment for both the rural and also the urban communities. So for me, I would say I think we've gotten somewhere. Bioeconomy, and with the Global Bioeconomy Summit 2024, we could see that we have taken off. We've taken off, and just as an example, and I really want to congratulate Ethiopia, immediately after the summit, they unveiled their national bioeconomy strategy. So that is key. And for East Africa, I don't know whether most of you know, but East Africa is the first regional economic bloc in Africa, and the second only globally after the European Union to have a dedicated bioeconomy strategy. So with this, we are now looking at coming up with or defining what we call the African bioeconomy that also connects to the global bioeconomy.
So the Global Bioeconomy Summit, it may have taken many, many years for it to leave Germany and Europe and come to Africa, but Africa is catching it and started running with it straight away. So no time to lose there. Well, thank you so much for this opening round. I would like to dig deeper now with some of the things that you mentioned, but do it sort of going along those 4 key topics which are part of this year's GFFA motto. And one of the key topics is sustainably producing biomass, solving conflicts of interest. I mean, there's a lot of already, because biomass, of course, can be used for, I don't know, energy, but at the same time, it's very important not to take biomass away from food, thus sort of making it difficult to achieve food security. So looking at this sustainably production of biomass, Mr. Zahidi and Dr. Shetty, could you give us an idea what the FAO, what the World Bank is doing in order to promote a sustainable bioeconomy in that way? Mr. Zahidi.
Of course. So, first of all, I think one of the important things is that we have to be careful not to pit these two things against each other. I appreciate that there are trade-offs in many decisions, but they are not mutually exclusive. We can't have agriculture or bioeconomy, agriculture or climate, agriculture or environment, because that's a false dichotomy. And I think that's really the beauty of the sustainable bioeconomy, is how do you weave these together and have wins, have co-benefits that apply across food security and climate and biodiversity and beyond. And I think that's exactly the way that countries have in a way brought bioeconomy into the FAO context. FAO was the first UN organization to make bioeconomy a sort of an official part of its strategic priorities, not just a repurposing of biodiversity or a repurposing of sustainable consumption, but really try to grapple with this concept of bioeconomy in a very holistic way. And of course, it's got implications at the norm-setting level. How do you define it? What are the parameters? How do we measure it? What are the metrics, etc.? It's got to make its way into the national level, so supporting the countries to really pick it up in their own national strategies, and then take it to the local implementation, where all of that innovation that was mentioned by Julius and others is so important. And we see this now, again, happening, because last year was the first time that we had two of FAO's sort of technical committees, the one dealing with forestry and the one dealing with agriculture, both talking very much about bioeconomy, trying to grapple with the bioeconomy, and both of which sort of concluded that there is a lot going on, and we need this partnership that the State Secretary mentioned to bring it together so that countries can share that experience very, very quickly and to get up and running. But it's not good enough for it to stay at the global level, and that's why we support at the national level. And these national priorities have to be seen in the country's own strategies, because they will then reflect the context that is relevant to the country, from Uruguay to Namibia and others, helping countries with those strategies, the bioeconomy strategies, or getting bioeconomy into climate, biodiversity and other strategies is critical, because it's a leverage to the third thing, and this is where I'll finish, is finance. You have to have the bioeconomy understood and disaggregated in those national plans to be able to attract finance, especially climate and environment finance. And we've begun to do that by demonstrating how you can, in a way, have these multiple benefits. And we've begun to see projects coming out of vertical funds like the Global Environment Facility that support, say, Pakistan with bio-based materials using agricultural waste, etc. So we're working at the three levels and trying to push the frontiers on all three of them.
And if I just may ask you that, because you mentioned parameters, metrics, data. So you're collecting the data in the various countries on local level, on national level, you look at it on a global level. Are the parameters then for bioeconomy, for sustainable bioeconomy the same, or do you have, is like the one size fits all, or do you have a very individual approach depending who your partner is?
So far, obviously, the approach to bioeconomy has been letting 1,000 flowers bloom, and those flowers look quite different. I thought the conversation in the G20 bioeconomy initiative were fascinating, because countries began to really say, look, this is how I'm doing it, this is what I'm doing, and they began to say what percentage of, say, their GDP is based on a bioeconomy. And of course, what was presented was very detailed, incredibly well-crafted, and completely different, because the parameters were different, the approach was different. And I think that's one of the things about a partnership, is how do you bring these players together? You don't have a one-size-fits-all. I think the State Secretary said that. But you can have some parameters, so at least there is a level of comparability and common understanding on a bioeconomy that ultimately goes beyond national boundaries.
Right. Dr. Shetty, the World Bank is also involved in promoting the bioeconomy. How so?
Thanks, Monica. So I think country demand for really these circular bioeconomy solutions is growing, in particular to combat climate change and produce local renewable energy at the country level, right? So at COP29, we had 30 countries that signed the declaration on reducing methane from organic waste. And further, 27% of countries refer to the circular economy now in their nationally determined contributions, in their NDCs, which, along with Brazil's Global Bioeconomy Initiatives, as well as the summit that was held in Kenya recently, we are seeing very strong signs of growing global momentum within countries to really advance circularity in all sectors, including through food systems. So at the World Bank, I think we are already responding to this growing demand through our operations. And we're also now incubating a global knowledge program on circular food systems, of which I'll say a little bit more. Let me give you a couple of examples. In China's Hubei province, the World Bank is supporting an ambitious low-carbon agriculture and soil health improvement program where we aim to scale up the recycling of biomass from agricultural waste through triple-win solutions like biochar, which can reuse crop and livestock waste to produce soil amendments and bioenergy while cutting production costs, emissions, and pollution. In Uruguay, for example, we have also supported dairy farmers with investments in anaerobic digesters that convert livestock waste to biogas and liquid fuel, thus generating renewable energy locally. And in fragile and conflict-affected settings in Africa, where scarce water and arable land pose major challenges, insect farming is now helping food-insecure communities rapidly produce nutritious and affordable protein, and it's also saving farmers money and governments' hard currency reserves by reducing purchases of food, animal feed, and fertilizers. So as Kaveh said, 1,000 flowers, let 1,000 flowers bloom, because it's very different in different country contexts. And just a final plug for the recent work we've undertaken. What we aim to do now is to really increase the technical and operational understanding of circular bioeconomy through a new program. And under this program, we are examining the economics of circular food systems at the global level, but zooming in also on operational technologies, business models, going back to the issue of finance raised by Dr. Lang, transition costs, and the enabling policy framework at country level. And to achieve this objective, I think we really see collaboration from the esteemed partners we have here today across development partners, academia, and client countries who really are serious about implementing circularity in their food systems. And in particular, we aim to learn from pioneers and global best practices. So we see this conference as very much a part of that learning process. And I'm really looking forward to hearing from all of those present here today.
Brilliant. I would like to give Professor Lang the opportunity now, when we have this header, conflict of interest, to pick up or elaborate on what you said earlier about not necessarily going into the details of the kind of innovations and applications that we already have. We may have time for that later, but more the conflict of interest, because obviously you were part of the Global Bioeconomy Summits, the previous ones. And I was wondering, is bioeconomy, you say, the economy has to become bioeconomy. Basically, that has to be the natural thing. At the moment, and for years certainly, I have more the impression that we have like two parallel universes. We have the universe of the people who promote bioeconomy and take data, explain it all, and also live it. And then we have the real economy that says, But maybe that is just my impression. I mean, you've been such an instrumental part in it all. How would you view it?
Yeah, it has been, like you said, for the last years. But now this is changing. And this is one of the most important changes that I see. For the Bioeconomy Summit in Nairobi, we did have meetings, for example, for World Economic Forum. They are starting to acknowledge bioeconomy as part of their work, which is really a great thing. There are other big organizations that are starting to look at bioeconomy as quite naturally as one of the pillars they have to go. For example, we are talking to European Space Agency, and they are starting a bioeconomy program. You would never believe that before.
Yeah, that's
so, and then, of course, as mentioned, the G20 initiative on bioeconomy is something that really promoted bioeconomy in another sphere, if I may say so. Because when you read the intro, and it is, I think, in paragraph 60 of the final G20 document, it acknowledges for the first time or recognizes bioeconomy as a transformative force for economy. And I mean, what else can we ask for as the next steps? So that it is recognized by traditional economists as important. And I think I understand why. It's not just the agri-food system, it's also the crisis we have, climate changes, climate mitigation, biodiversity loss. And we want to get rid of fossil raw materials. How could you do all these things without bioeconomy? And I think this is what finally reaches people's mind and discussion, that you need bioeconomy to reach goals that ensure the health of planet, nature, and humans.
So it's not a thing about it's nice to have, but no, let us do the proper job.
Absolutely necessary.
It has to come together. And you and what I get from the others, you have the feeling that the time has come where at least the first sort of where they start to touch. Maybe not yet intertwine, but we're on our way, and then the real economy, yes.
Yeah, just to add to this, maybe this is because the innovation has gone this long way, and now products and processes are available that can be scaled up, and products can be done, and so people see what it is. As long as it is in a lab, probably only experts will know about it. But once you scale up and get the money to scale up things and go into the market, then it reaches consumers and society.
I mean, Julia Zikura, from the Global Bioeconomy Summit in Kenya, what you said before about really how the African continent, as we all know, is very young. Lots of really well-educated, very ambitious, enthusiastic young people there as well. And we've also heard from Mr. Sahidi how the Global South is also having a kind of advantage almost, because you don't have to make the same mistakes that the Global North has done for decades and decades. So is the bioeconomy perhaps leapfrogging in your region, and what can we learn from that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we make the argument that this is the time that we have the opportunity to leapfrog using the bioeconomy. Why? Because if you look at Africa or maybe the tropical world, the richness in biodiversity is a strategic advantage. And as you mentioned, the burgeoning youth with a lot of talent, and then the availability of scientific knowledge, which is somehow democratized now, providing more access. So we can put all this together to have a bioeconomy that transforms lives and economies. So, and we look at issues of climate. I mean, Africa is the least emitter of greenhouse gases. But as you say, we don't have to follow the old paradigm of growth. Bioeconomy offers a new paradigm of growth. Of course, there are trade-offs as we go into this journey. And that is why we call for partnerships, global partnerships, regional partnerships, so that we move this journey together, having sustainable bioeconomy as the growth pathway for the future. So at the GBS 2020 in Nairobi, and I want to thank Her Excellency Claudia Muller, who opened this summit, we agreed that we have to support local initiatives to develop unique advantages based on their biological resources, and connect those to regional and then to global value chains. So that's critical. We also agreed that we should encourage bioeconomy education and integrate this at all levels, especially for the youth, and bringing in skills. And then we encourage the idea of having in place standards, making sure we have a good working environment. And Professor Lang mentioned about if things stay in the lab, it's only the scientists who know. And that's a big challenge, at least in the global south. And so what we call for is, support to translate these innovative research outputs or scientific outputs, including indigenous knowledge, to, practical use or marketable or commercial goods and services that are affordable to, people in the rural areas, but also those in the urban communities. So we need to break or close that gap, so that we have a smooth transition to this bioeconomy that we are talking about.
Actually, is a very good point for me to turn to our young farmers' representatives and bring them in. Who would like to go first? Because I would like to have some sort of feedback as to what you make of what's been said here. Is this all to, somewhere on a level where you say, yeah, but we on the ground actually do this, that, or the other? Martin, do shed some light on that, please.
Yeah, g'day. So, Martin Murray, a young farmer from Australia. Believe it or not, I am only 31, despite the grey hair. I know I look about 60. To me, just listening to the panel up here this morning, it seems like there's a few key themes. We have to increase food production for a growing population, grow biomass to support the bioeconomy, and protect the biodiversity of the world. And to me, it seems like the only way forward is through increasing productivity on existing farmland through sustainable productivity. And to me, that means that we've got to look towards innovations and, not look to restrict what farmers and producers have to use, but encourage and foster innovation in farming practices. Like, for example, I can use cotton in Australia. Back in the 90s, it was nearly a dead industry, coming to the point where it was unproductive and just not economic to grow it. But through adapting innovations in agriculture, increasing efficiency and taking on board technologies such as BT cotton, we have been able to grow the most water-efficient cotton in the world and some of the most productive cotton in the world. We have one grower now that in particular has been able to achieve yields in excess of 22 bales a hectare the last few years, where back in the 90s we were growing 6 to 8 bales a hectare. The industry standard now is about 14 to 16 bales a hectare. And that is through embracing technology and innovation. Similar with when it comes to things like herbicides, what's sustainable in one part of the world is not sustainable in others. We operate in zero-till agriculture. For us, the worst thing that we can do, particularly in dryland agriculture, so rain-fed, is to work our soils. And for that, we need access to a broad range of herbicides to control our weeds. And when it comes to reducing the amount that we apply, the answer is not in restricting the amount of herbicides that are available. That only will increase herbicide resistance in weeds. The answer is in through embracing technology such as camera sprayers. These are sprayers that identify weeds in the paddock and activate nozzles only when they are over a weed. And look, in Australia, that's not even innovative technology. We've had that for about 15 years. Where we are at the cutting edge is using AI to develop green-on-green technology, identifying weeds inside a crop and only spraying those weeds in the crop. And then also increasing global trade and realising that, again, as I said earlier, what may be sustainable in one part of the world is not in another. And we need to identify that and come to terms with that and not place restrictions on other countries and how they produce food just because that would not work in your part of the world.
Right.
Yeah, so really
you've given us a lot of food for thought there already, Martin.
That's my perspective as an Australian farmer. It's all about increasing productivity and doing that in a sustainable manner.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Martin. Before we pick up, let me just tell our wonderful technicians who have prepared those beautiful slides with the titles of our key topics to jump to key topic 3 now, because the word innovation and new technologies kept popping up now. Martin said it a lot. We had it on the panel as well, so I think it's high time to tackle that. Because what we heard from Martin certainly is, I mean, innovation, new technologies, AI, and you can create a functioning, sustainable bioeconomy where he is. Not everything that he just suggested works elsewhere, which fits with what you said, Mr. Zahidi, about the thousands of different flowers and the different approach. So let's just pick up on this one key topic with innovation, because we've heard we have the innovation, we have new technologies, we have new applications, but far too often they are not just coming to the fore because they aren't scalable simply because there isn't the money there. That's a question for all of you. How can we solve that? Because obviously it's important. You know, innovation just for the sake of it is not really helpful. So who has a good idea? All of you, Mr. Zahidi.
Let somebody else go first.
Dr. Shetty, Julius, you go first.
Well, I can go first. I work on innovation. It's interesting. The way we define innovation is when a new idea or product, a new idea is put to practice or put to use. But I think the key issue is we produce a lot of knowledge, and I've always emphasized, including indigenous knowledge, which resides with the communities. The question is how to turn that knowledge into goods and services that you and I can access. And that is where we need a lot of support on the innovation process, that process that allows for co-creativity, collaboration, and I emphasize collaboration between industry, academia, and governments. They all have to be in this. Of course, some people now add communities as well. So that is crucial. And when we look at innovation, for instance, in the Global South, about 65% of businesses are in the informal sector. Most of them are micro, small and medium enterprise. The large players are a little bit absent. And we think that, bringing the large industry on board could actually stimulate this innovation and help to bring a lot of the ideas and knowledge that is generated to the market. But oftentimes, the problem is trust, the lack of trust between people who collaborate. Mm-hmm. And where I come from, it's mostly lack of trust between the industry and the academia.
So how do we overcome that? How do you overcome the lack of trust between industry and academia? Yeah. Professor Lang is smiling. She may have, she may have some experience there.
Yes, I think Professor Lang should. But one thing before Professor Lang comes in, I think we have to promote what we call mutually beneficial partnerships where there's respect and accountability, and develop institutional frameworks that allow this collaboration to happen and build that trust over time. But I think, Professor Lang, you have some more experience on this.
You have the silver bullet, Professor Lang.
Sorry, what?
The silver bullet, you have it.
Yeah, definitely. If I had it. I mean, just supporting what it says, of course, that cooperation is one point. I do have actually 4 points I would just put to discussion. First is, and coming back to what Martin said, that you have different circumstances, different situations in each country to get innovation to the market. And one of the things that I would like to name at this is the kind of you need an enabling environment for your ideas. So it could be a national strategy. I'm not aware, my feeling is Australia does not have a national bioeconomy strategy, so that could help if you have a policy that really recognizes and acknowledges what can be done with bioeconomy for farmers and for other industry areas. So this is one. So we look for the policy to ask them to put an enabling environment for your ideas. The second I have is, do look at standards and regulations. Sometimes it's just a case that new products cannot fulfill the standards that are there for the traditional products. That sometimes hinders a bit the market. And the third one is the fossil products. I call it traditional products, but I don't want to mix it up with traditional knowledge. So I say the fossil-based old products are subsidized to a really shocking level. And to get new products in there that are not fossil-based but bio-based, it needs that we think about that and that we really change policies here and come to a kind of, we call it a level playing field, so that you really have the same starting points for products. And the third one is the financing for getting to the market. Yeah. You need new biomanufacturing facilities. In many cases, you need new routes for trading, and this also costs money. So take some of the subsidies, the money is there, but put it into the new products, and then markets will open.
But I think very important also the policymakers' roles and regulation. You cannot just rely on the goodwill or basically explain it all the time. That some people have to be forced in order to actually reach and become happy. You know, you can't just expect them to find happiness themselves. We have time for Rosalind, our second young farmer representative here with us in the room. Rosalind, what do you make of all this now?
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you so very much. I feel like bioeconomy is a good thing. I shouldn't say I feel like, but bioeconomy is really a good thing. There is sustainable agriculture. There is job creation in bioeconomy. There is sustainable environmental, like reduction of environmental impact. Like there is recycling of wastes, utilizing of renewable resources. On food security, there is food security, which is if you are farming sustainably, that means there is food security. I feel like there is a need of more awareness. There should be more education, raising awareness in these things. Because like in Malawi, bioeconomy is at development stage. It's a new thing. So I feel like there is need of more education and awareness. You know, there is a need of that trust that you were talking about. People will be thinking like, Gen Z in Africa have information. They have knowledge. They are knowledgeable. They know that maybe Global North is emitting too much. We are only emitting 3%. And then this thing of bioeconomy, who are encouraging it? G20 people, maybe Europe, maybe America. They are the ones who are maybe in the Global North. But this is a good thing. You are encouraging it, or they're encouraging it, or they're influencing it for our goodness. So there is a need of more negotiations. There are need of more, okay, so maybe, let's say there is a meeting of bioeconomy, G20. Maybe Kenya or Malawi is participating, our leaders, maybe they'll be the one having an opportunity to participate. I think there is a need of encouraging them that they have to do participatory approach. They need to approach people who are in grassroots. They have to involve these people because they'll be part of implementers. They have to understand what is it, because they'll be shifting of what they're doing to bioeconomy. So let them understand, let us understand, include us youth. You know, youth we easily adopt. Include us. Bioeconomy is a good thing. Let us understand, engage us more so that we can understand what is really happening. That trust that we're talking about, we should understand that this is for our own goodness, not like that, no hidden agendas or everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rosalind, for that. Awareness, education, and that goes for the leaders, but also for those at the grassroots, so that the topic of bioeconomy doesn't just stay in such a big hall with such distinguished guests, but actually we can breathe life into it on the ground. And that actually takes us to the fourth key topic, namely creating a fair framework, harnessing change, which also has to do with communicating that change. And perhaps you can see that time is not on our side, but if you would like to, one of you perhaps, respond to Rosalind, how you or how we can bring that change, that awareness to the grassroots and include them. Like, I know that the FAO, I know that the World Bank has many initiatives doing just that. Perhaps you just want to pick one in order to give us an example.
It's impossible when you ask someone from the UN to pick one example.
Yeah, and short.
I'm going to have to give you 20 examples of the wonderful work. I think it's about having all the right voices, right? Because the thing is that, you know, we've talked about all of these experiences, different countries experimenting, many different kinds of bioeconomy approaches and what have you. When we say 1,000 flowers bloom, or when we say that's great, you know, the national circumstances, I hope nobody is hearing business as usual. Because we're not in a business as usual phase anymore, right? We are in a climate emergency, our biodiversity is in free fall, and we're not even matching our food security needs, right? I mean, over 700 million people still go hungry in this day and age. So it is, yes, different approaches, but with a sort of singular target in mind. And I think that singular target, my own Director General often says, it's about producing more with less. You know, we know that the world population is increasing. We know that we're not meeting all of the needs even today, let alone what's projected towards the middle of the century, but we cannot produce more in the old style of intensification. It is about producing more with less inputs and less externalities that the panelists were also mentioning. And I think in that we have an ally in the youth, because they understand this multiple agenda so well, and they are at the cutting edge of the innovation and must be a part of that broad tent, and the partnership, again, that the State Secretary mentioned, will of course be inclusive of the youth as a strong solution provider.
I don't know, time always flies when you're having fun, and the topic of bioeconomy, thankfully, is dominating the Global Forum for Food and Agriculture until, including Saturday. So you all will have the opportunity to deep dive on various aspects. But in order, as I mentioned at the beginning, not to miss the woods for the trees, perhaps the panelists in their final words, in their closing statements, can give you some guidance, what to focus on when you have your discussions. Julius, you start. What should they focus on in the next few days?
Everything we've talked about here. But I think for me, first of all, is to know that bioeconomy can make our agriculture and food systems more sustainable and profitable. I want to underline that. Profitability is possible. But that needs more investment, in my view, in scientific research to find nature-positive solutions. And also, we also need to discuss how to create these win-win partnerships. I call them innovation collaborations that will lead to new products, sustainable businesses, sustainable jobs of tomorrow. And this requires both, north-south and also south-south partnerships. I think these are some of the issues I would request the delegates in here to discuss.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Julius. I'm jumping to Mr. Zahedi. I'm shaking things up now.
Wow, okay, good. So maybe 4 very quick things. I think we've heard here, and I would reiterate, that agriculture and food systems should be and are at the heart of the bioeconomy. Look at the G20 principles of Brazil, look at the first principle and take it to heart, because it is so important not to lose sight of our food security needs. Secondly, is we're asking for a major transformation, right? A major transition. We have to bring into the bioeconomy conversation the just transition and the concept of leaving no one behind as we transition. We cannot use new bio-innovation technologies, etc., to block people out. Rather, we have to use them to bring people in. Third of all, I think finance is important. And right now, we're still in a very much a niche market. Yep. It is, at the end of the day, bioeconomy. It has to be about the economy. It has to be about those new products that the innovation brings. And so the economy part cannot be forgotten. And we need to see together how we can leverage more funding. The repurposing of the national investments is one of them, including subsidies. Bringing in climate, biodiversity, and other finance is another one. And finally, it is partnership. Partnerships are important because we just don't have the time to keep learning and relearning and making the same mistakes. We've got to really learn very quickly from innovations, from successes, and the partnership, again, that the State Secretary mentioned, I hope is one, yet another one that can help to bring more of those innovations, more of those practices, more of those experiences quickly for people to share and to learn from and to scale up.
Brilliant. Thank you, Dr. Zahedi. Dr. Shetty.
Everything he said. No, but just to make the, this has been a really interesting discussion, and I think listening to my fellow panelists, it's really clear that the circular bioeconomy represents a real transformative opportunity for all of us to collectively reset our food systems. And but simultaneously, there's also a very clear need for us to have a deeper understanding, and Dr. Lang referred to this, of how policy frameworks and regulatory frameworks can be strengthened to provide that enabling environment to promote circular bioeconomy in our food systems and aligning it with global climate and development goals. And here again, when you're talking about innovations, and we talked about industry and academia and the lack of trust, I think we also see that in the public sector versus private sector, right? So, and here I think this is where we really need to make a bigger push for, strengthening these public-private partnerships, because we have a lot of these technologies and innovations that can help, as Martin said, to increase productivity, but reducing our land, water, and carbon footprint, like seaweed-based feed additives, and nitrogen-fixing bacteria. But all of this needs some catalytic investments, and of course, the enabling environment to really, it has to be scalable. We cannot have these boutique projects anymore. So I think at the World Bank, we are also very keen on supporting our countries to really integrate these circular bioeconomy objectives in their ongoing NDC updates, the national adaptation plans, as well as the national agriculture investment plans. And to go back to what was said earlier, all of this will need partnerships. This is about partnerships, financing, knowledge, right? So it's all about collaboration and also the cross-sector alliances. I mean, we're talking about agriculture and food here, but this also includes a lot of cross-sectoral alliances between energy, manufacturing, waste management. I mean, it's just such a multi-dimensional issue. So I hope that we can really find the kind of technologies and financing which are required, that are fundamentally cross-cutting. And as pioneers and leaders in this room today, I think your influence is critical in really driving the transformation that we all need in our agri-food systems today.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Shetty. Professor Lang, what should they focus on?
Yeah, I don't want to repeat everything you said because, right, but I do have 3 wishes to the audience and what you could do. It's not just us who can do bioeconomy. So first of all, go back when you go home and try to build a local bioeconomy, and that is sustainable, that is inclusive, that is fair. This is the basic for a global bioeconomy. So it's up to you to start all of this. This is my first wish. The second is embrace innovation. Look at things people are doing in the research in technologies and be open to this and embrace that. And my third wish is that treat bioeconomy as a new economy and be yourself a bioeconomist. That's mine.
Fantastic. Thank you so very much. Big, big thank you to the entire panel. That wraps up the opening event. But it's only the beginning of the GFFA 2025. At 4 o'clock, the first high-level panel will take place here. It'll also be on a live stream. There's lots more happening. Expert panels, of course, on Saturday. We have the ministerial round, the agriculture ministerial round. Parts of it will also be live streamed. There are so many other things happening here at the City Cube. Please keep an eye on the GFFA website where you see the entire program so you don't miss anything. And first and foremost, I wish you good discussions, fruitful discussions, and a great and successful time here at the GFFA 2025 in Berlin. Thank you so much for being at the opening event. Thank you for our online viewers. Bye-bye.